Welcome to Aging Insights. I'm Melissa Chalker, Deputy Director of the New Jersey Foundation for Aging. The Foundation's mission is to enable seniors to live with independence and dignity in their communities. Aging Insights is produced by the New Jersey Foundation for Aging to provide information and resources to boomers, seniors, and caregivers. The primary focus being to share important information and connect people to community-based programs. Today we're talking about sleep, why we need it, what disrupts it, and how not only to get more of it, but to get better sleep as well. I'm joined today by two guests to give us all of the details. Dr. Callum Dupre, a neurologist and sleep medicine specialist with Capital Health System Comprehensive Sleep Associates of New Jersey, and Mr. Joel Weintraub, a physiologist, health educator, and neuroscience researcher. So thank you, gentlemen. I'm so glad that you both could make time. I know that you're both incredibly busy, so it's great that you made time to join us today to talk about this really interesting topic. It is something that I think people don't think about enough, but we all know that we need sleep, and we all have our own routine, I'm sure, and we're going to learn a little bit more about why that's important today and how to work on those things. But I thought, Dr. Dupre, I would start with you, and if you could first tell us a little bit about the work that you do and maybe explain to people what sleep medicine is, because they might not know that as a specialty.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for having me to talk about a subject near and dear to my heart. Sleep medicine is this very fascinating subspecialty of medicine that falls at an intersection between neurology, pulmonology, psychiatry, and somewhat ear, nose, and throat as well. And commensurately, there are ENTs, neurologists, pulmonologists, et cetera, who will all practice sleep medicine. The reason why it's such an interdisciplinary specialty is that the range of conditions that can throw off your sleep, whether it's quantity of sleep, whether it's quality of sleep, there's a very wide range of such conditions, ranging from things like insomnia, for instance, is often a poster child of sleep disruption, which falls somewhat, but not completely, within the realm of psychiatry, psychology. Sleep apnea, a condition where people stop breathing in their sleep temporarily, which falls more within the ENT, the pulmonology bailiwick, and as far as I'm concerned, the more near and dear to my heart, the neurological conditions that do things like restless leg syndrome, things like the odd behaviors that people do during their sleep, ranging from sleep walking, sleep talking, sleep driving, sleep eating. People can cook entire meals in their sleep. Often they're somewhat nonsensical. Peanut butter and pickle sandwiches, that kind of thing, and conditions like narcolepsy.
So you've listed quite a lot of conditions there, and you mentioned a lot of subspecialties or specialties in medicine. So, obviously depending, and you were pretty good at giving the condition and the doctor. So for instance, for insomnia, you would see what type of?
Well, so actually you would think that for insomnia, you would want to see a psychiatrist. For the neurological bent conditions, you would think that you would have to see a neurologist. And I mean, there's a little truth to that, but it's really not a rule. Most sleep doctors, whether they're psychiatrists, pulmonologists, neurologists, really are comfortable handling all of those conditions, really everything that falls within the realm of sleep medicine. And if you have any question, always meet with your primary first, and they can really give you their impression and guide you in the right
direction. So if you have concerns about your sleep or any of the things that you mentioned, you're feeling these symptoms, you shouldn't say that, oh, I have to seek out this specialist right away. You can go to your family doctor and say, hey, this is what's going on, and they might then recommend you go see a specialist.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Great. I know in preparation for this, we talked a little bit about circadian rhythms. Can you tell us what that is all about and what that means?
Absolutely. So your circadian rhythm, it's your biological clock, and I believe Joel's going to talk about this in a bit more detail. But the rough version is you have a pacemaker, a circadian pacemaker in your body, in your pineal gland, which regulates generally when you should start to feel tired and when you should start to feel alert. With the idea being in someone who has I hate to use the word normal, but say more conventionally functioning circadian pacemaker. It tells you you want to go to sleep around approximately 10 o'clock and you want to wake up at about 6 to 7. The problem is there are people who have disorders where that circadian rhythm is shifted. So for instance, teenagers, there's actually a neurobiological reason. It's incredibly common that they have a delayed sleep phase where their body doesn't even tell them to go to sleep until 1 or 2 and doesn't tell them to wake up until noon. And the opposite for the population we're here to talk about in seniors, it's actually fairly common that they have the opposite, an advanced sleep phase where the body doesn't even, tells them to go to sleep around 6, 7, 8 and tells them to wake up at 3, 4 in the morning.
Right, which is something that some people might consider too early to sleep or too early to get up.
Oh, absolutely.
I like that you hesitate using normal, because normal is different depending on who you are, right? So this is great, and as you said, Joel is going to talk a little bit more about that sort of part of it in a little bit. But I wanted to talk to you, since we're talking about that, how much sleep, as a doctor who specializes in this, how much sleep do you recommend people need really to function and be the best that they can be?
Absolutely, yeah. So like most things, there's a short and a long answer to that.
Right.
The short answer is 7 to 8 hours.
Right.
The long answer, it varies significantly based on age and by health status.
Right.
First of all, by age, everyone knows newborns, infants, they sleep 12, 15 hours a day.
Right.
And that's normal. If an adult was sleeping 12 to 15 hours a day, that would be a problem.
Right.
In adults, the range generally is about 7 to 9 in young adulthood, and then as you get on in life and on to the 70s, 80s, 90s, it really drops down to about 6 to 7 hours. Now that's a little bit of a false statistic, because those studies just looked at overnight sleep time.
Oh, okay.
And people who are conventionally getting 5 to 6 hours at night, chances are they're probably getting an hour or two of nap time throughout the course of the day.
Sure. So that's interesting, because there is a biological need for sleep that changes as we age. As you said, infants require more sleep; they sleep more frequently, and that's totally normal. And then as that middle, adulthood part, you're recommending. People usually say 8 hours, right? So that wouldn't be far off. And then as we get older, we do see that decreased need. Or is it a decreased need, or is it just that people are sleeping less in the nighttime?
So there's certainly a habitual component to it, and I know Joel's going to talk about this, but as technology advances and screens play more of a role in our life, that tends to keep you awake. There's more going on at night. This isn't, the 1700s when after the sun went down, there's very little to do.
Right.
It's very easy to stay up late, and when you stay up late, your body still tells you at a certain time, now's the time to get up.
Right.
So shorten sleep time then. But also, just as you get older, often other things crop up: insomnia, musculoskeletal difficulties like hip pain, arthritis, back pain that disrupt your sleep. So wide range of things that do it.
Wider range of things, yeah. And so someone who's not getting that recommended 8 hours or the amount of sleep that they need, what symptoms might they experience that show sleep deprivation? What type of things can they expect to happen if they're not getting enough sleep?
Oh, sure. So you would think the obvious one would be sleepiness.
Right.
And that's the middle-aged man who, say, has sleep apnea or is dealing with insomnia, is only getting 3-4 hours of sleep a night. Sleepiness. Eyelids are heavy, the head is heavy, you want to close your eyes and go to sleep. But that's definitely not the be-all and end-all. There are many people who manifest sleepiness in a different way, whether it's mood disorders, being more prone to mood lability, mood swings, depression, anxiety, chronic pain syndromes. There actually have been studies where they took people who were kind of quote-unquote normal sleepers and people who were sleep deprived, and they gave them the same somewhat painful stimuli, and people who had poor sleep quantity and poor sleep quality actually reported the same stimuli as more painful than those without. And the idea is, when you're exhausted, just everything seems worse. Now in kids too, it also varies by age and by gender. In kids, there's much more of an impulsivity, a hyperactivity presentation. It's why people, when children, as part of the ADD diagnosis, you always make sure that the person doesn't have a sleep disorder, because if they do, it could absolutely mimic ADD. You have to treat the underlying disorder, and you don't just, unfortunately, put them on stimulants for the next few years of their life.
Right. And so for older adults in that category, are there specific things that they want to be careful of as signs or symptoms of sleep deprivation, of not getting enough rest in the evening?
Well, absolutely. So it also changes by gender, too. In men tend to be, when they're sleepy, whether it's from poor sleep quantity or poor sleep quality, they tend to be more overtly sleepy. Whereas women, it actually tends to be more of a fatigue-like presentation. The difference being, with fatigue, you're not so much sleepy as tired, don't have the energy to do what you need to do, you don't have the strength to do what you need to do. Maybe you want to close your eyes and take a nap, and if you did, maybe you'd fall asleep, maybe you just rest with your eyes closed. And actually, because of that, rates of diagnosis of sleep disorders are often significantly different between genders. In a middle-aged man who comes in thick neck, overweight, certain sleep disorders are weight dependent, and snoring like crazy, and falling asleep in meetings, falling asleep the second they hit that easy chair, you think they probably have a sleep disorder. Whereas in women, often rates of diagnosis are much lower. They tend to be diagnosed with sleep disorders later in life. They tend to be at higher weights, tend to be symptoms tend to crop up much more because it's just, unfortunately, the index of suspicion is lower.
Right.
So to answer your question, the things you look for, the obvious ones, sleepiness, but concentration difficulties, dozing off, fatigue, mood lability, irritability,
Right.
etc.
Which are all things that later in life could be assumed to be from something else, right? They could
Absolutely.
be, misdiagnosed with other things. I'm thinking off the top of my head, memory issues and that sort of thing. When you talk about concentration and that sort of thing, it could also be
Sure.
misconstrued that, oh, well, they're getting older and they can't function the same way cognitively. So there could be that confusion as well, right?
There's the concept of pseudo-dementia, which is someone may seem to have a more mild dementia, forgetfulness, concentration difficulties, when in actuality, the poster child of pseudo-dementia is depression, but on top of that, sleep disorders, because when you're exhausted, you just can't concentrate. The sleep plays an important role in memory formation. So it can mimic memory impairment and cognitive impairment, certainly.
Sure. So I'm glad you mentioned naps earlier when you were talking about the recommended hours of sleep that people should get, because I did want to ask you about whether or not this myth of being able to make up sleep. So if you're not getting the right amount of sleep at night and you take a nap during the day, or the next night you want to sleep in, go to bed earlier or sleep later and say, oh, I'll make up what I didn't get last night. Is that possible? Is that something people can do, or is that
Definitely.
like, oh, you missed that chance?
So that's the concept of what's called a sleep debt, which means that every day you only get, say your body needs 8 hours and you're only getting 5 hours. Every day you're accumulating this 3-hour sleep debt. It's very true, and there's actually a neurobiological reason for it. There's a chemical in a certain area of your brain called adenosine, and there are a lot of chemicals in your brain that influence sleep and help alertness or cause you to be sleepy. But adenosine, as it accumulates, the more time you spend awake, your brain is synthesizing this adenosine and your levels are going up. And the more time you spend asleep, especially with good quality sleep, it's breaking it down and going away. And as it's accumulating throughout the course of the day, you're becoming more and more tired, and you want those levels nice and high when you go to bed. Whereas if you're napping, those levels aren't nice and high. And so you want that to put you to sleep. And so the idea is, if you're habitually only getting insufficient sleep, over time, your adenosine levels are going up and up and up. Now, it's not a one-to-one exchange. So I don't want people to think that, oh no, I've been, for the last few years, only getting 6 hours. Am I never going to make it up? You can actually make up and get rid of all that adenosine within about 2 or 3 days of good, solid, and generally when you're making it up, you're not getting 8 hours, you're getting 9, 10 hours of sleep.
Right.
But you can make up for it. But the sleep debt does exist.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And we've been talking a lot about the quantity, but you've also hinted at the fact that there's quality of sleep as well. So what can you tell us about the different types of sleep, or how the type of sleep you get matters in all of these things as well?
Sure. So there are 4 main stages of sleep. There used to be 5. They got rid of one of them because they realized it was really synonymous with one of the others.
Okay.
Generally, they're broken down into REM sleep, which is rapid eye movement sleep where dreaming happens, and non-REM sleep. Non-REM sleep, there's stage 1, 2, and 3. Stage 1, it's light drowsiness. It doesn't do very much. It's not restful. You don't really want too much of that. About 5% of your sleep should be that stage 1 sleep. Stage 2, which plays something of a role in more memory formation, but more physical skill memory formation than anything else. But it's good sleep. It's decent quality. You want about 70% or so of your sleep to be that stage 2. Stage 3, which is conventionally called delta sleep, slow wave sleep, which is by far one of the most restful stages of sleep. It's also where a lot of your hormonal secretion, your body's kind of homeostatic regulation goes on. A lot of, especially in developing kids, a lot of growth hormone secretion happens during stage 3 sleep. And so actually kids with sleep disorders can actually develop more slowly. They can end up with shorter statures, smaller, just because that same growth hormone secretion is disrupted. In stage REM sleep, where dreaming happens, that also plays a significant component in memory consolidation as well.
Wow. It's all really fascinating, and I'm sure in-depth stuff that you could probably tell us even more about that we wouldn't fully comprehend. But if someone is feeling like they're not getting the most sleep that they can get, they should definitely talk to their doctor about it, because then they can see a sleep specialist or one of the other specialties you mentioned and really get evaluated to learn more about the type of sleep they're getting and how it affects their day-to-day stuff, right?
Yeah, because when you don't have the quality of sleep and there's something, whatever it is, that's disrupting your sleep, you tend to get much less of that deep slow wave sleep and of that REM sleep, and much more of those lighter, less restorative stages of sleep.
Sure. Great. Well, thank you for all of that really great information. I think it's going to give our audience a lot to think about, and hopefully they can incorporate some of the tips that Joel's going to give us into their how to get some more and better sleep that we know that they need, thanks to Dr. Dupre. So Joel, I do want to specifically talk to you about how to improve sleep, and this is something that that you have been able to talk about with folks for a while, and so I thought we'd have you on to share that with our audience. So what are your top tips? Where would you start with telling people how to get better sleep?
My top tip would be with timing. Timing is everything.
Sure.
You ever come home from work and you're really tired? You're almost looking forward to coming home and just lying in bed. You're not thinking, I'm going to go home and get dinner, I'm going to watch TV. I'm just going to go to bed.
Right.
Then what happens is, it's 6, 7 o'clock, and you're thinking, I'm not going to bed. It's too early to go to bed. I have to get something to eat. I have to eat. I have to watch TV. My favorite show's on tonight. And then all of a sudden you start thinking, I got to get to sleep. And you're like, oh, the news. I have to catch what's on the news today. And then before you know it, late night TV. Oh, I always wanted to see that person. And meanwhile, you completely. Well, what happened was, you're staying awake, and your body wanted you to go to bed at 7, 8 o'clock. But meanwhile, you lost that window of opportunity. And your body's going, uh-oh, this person's going to stay awake all day. What are we going to do? So what happens is the body says, adrenaline, kick in. We need you. And adrenaline says, what do you need me for? It's nighttime. And the body's going, this is a very important person. I think they're going to be watching TV all night. We need you. So adrenaline comes into the system. Now you can't go to sleep. So if your normal sleep time is, say, 10 o'clock, your adrenaline is so high, you're going to miss that. And then what will happen is that'll shift your sleep time to maybe 11 o'clock the next day. So another problem people run into is they'll go to sleep early. They'll say, oh, tomorrow I have to get up early, so I'm going to go to bed early. And I'll go to bed at 9 o'clock instead of 10 o'clock. But when they go to bed at 9 o'clock, they're lying in bed. They're waiting for that sleep train to come around 10 o'clock. And when it comes, you're not on it because you're aroused. So what you want to do is pick the timing, follow the timing. When you're tired, go to sleep. Now, not if you're driving, but say you're eating dinner. Wear pajamas and get ready for bed, and then eat mashed potatoes. This way, when you fall asleep, the mashed potatoes will break your fall. And I say it a little facetiously, but maybe a little more carbohydrate at night and maybe a little more protein during the day.
Okay. That's all great advice. And I know in preparation for the show, we talked about a lot of things, and there's so many things that go into to going to sleep, right? You've got your bedroom, and you have your bedding and your pillows and the paint color and the lights in the room. So of those things, what are the highlights that you would tell people to pay attention to really improve their sleep?
Well, the bed, you always hear, now where I live, on television, the last month, it's just a coincidence that we're talking about sleep. They're saying get a new bed every 8 years.
Wow.
And the statistic was always 7 to 10 years. My theory is if you go to a hotel or you stay at somebody else's house and you say, wow, I had a really nice, good sleep. I felt really good. My back doesn't hurt. And then when you come home and you're miserable, it might be a sign to get a new bed.
Right, sure.
So if you go on vacation every year, that's great. Just pay attention. Do you feel better when you're away from the house? And if you don't go away, at least it gives you an excuse. Every 8 years, go on vacation for one night, stay at a nice hotel, and if the bed's better than yours, find out what kind of bed they have, and then buy it, bring it home.
Right. And what about, the people talk about the color of their room and what color they should paint it, what's soothing, what will help? Will any of that matter? Will any of that help you get better sleep if you paint your room lavender or you paint it baby blue or bright yellow? Will any of that matter?
Well, it's interesting because if you ever go to a fast food restaurant, it's never light blue, it's never lavender.
No.
Why? It's always red because they want to get you excited, they want you to eat.
Right.
If they want you to eat slower, they would say, let's have blue paint. So if you want to calm yourself down, have blue paint. Or a neutral color like a gray or a tan, beige color. Maybe flat paint. You definitely want flat paint on the wall, on the ceiling, and on the side, maybe the regular walls, maybe have eggshell. It's not as reflective as, say, a satin paint.
Right.
And you're thinking, well, wait a minute, it doesn't matter because I'm sleeping at night. It doesn't matter. But when you go in, when you walk in and you're soothed and you're relaxed, it's going to, see, the problem people make is they say, oh, I have to get a good bed because it has to get me to sleep.
Right.
That's a lot of pressure on a bed. Your job is to work so hard during the day and do everything right that the bed catches you. And it's a symbiotic relationship. And then the bed and you can actually have a good 7-8 hours of sleep.
Sure, sure. Now you're talking about reflection off the paint. So does the lighting in my bedroom matter? You know, the wattage of the bulb, or how soon I turn the light off, or sleeping in complete darkness. There are some people that, you know, wear the eye mask and they want to sleep in complete darkness. Does that factor in much?
Yeah, actually, the darker the room, the more you're going to secrete melatonin.
Right.
Dr. Dupre was talking earlier about how in the old days, people had candlelight.
Right.
And they would read a little bit at night, and they'd go to sleep, and it was very soothing. So if you read a few minutes before you go to bed, especially something that's maybe either so fascinating that it makes you go to sleep, or so boring that it makes you go to sleep, you just don't want to have something, you don't want to read for hours on end, because you'll associate that bed with reading. So maybe find a routine that works for you. If something normally puts you to sleep during the day, do it at night. So if you have a book that you've been reading that you go, oh, that book always puts me to sleep, good, read it at night.
Read it at night, yeah.
And maybe a dimmer switch.
A dimmer,
maybe a
oh,
45-watt bulb. If you had the old incandescent bulbs, they didn't have as much blue light that shut off as much melatonin production. The LED lights shut off more melatonin production. And take another step, a red light. And you're thinking, well, red's stimulative. But not when it comes to a red light bulb. It doesn't shut off melatonin production as much.
That's really interesting. People don't think about their melatonin production and what is good or bad for it, right? But that's great advice with that. You know, speaking of lights and of reading, and Dr. Dupre mentioned technology, what recommendations do you have in terms of people with screens, like, you know, looking at your phone or a tablet or an e-reader before bed? Does that have an impact on your sleep and on your melatonin at all?
Now you're back to that blue light.
Yeah.
And again, years ago, when we started, remember they had, it was called the itty bitty light. And you would
Yes,
put this
I do.
little
Yes,
light
the itty
over your book,
light, yeah.
and you would read it, and you could barely read, and you go, oh, I'm really tired, I'm going to go to sleep. Television, everybody said television was terrible, but remember when you were younger, you would watch TV, and you'd have your fingers on the remote, and you could barely even click the remote. So if you didn't look at the screen, in theory, it would lull you off to sleep. Unfortunately, if you didn't have a sleep timer, the TV's running all night, and you think you're asleep, but you're not going to get that deep sleep that Dr. Dupre was talking about.
Right.
So if you had a sleep timer and you're watching TV anyway, get the sleep timer, and as long as you're not looking at the screen too much, and if it's a short time, then it's probably not going to interfere with your sleep too much, but maybe a little mood music, pan flute. If you ever listen to go on YouTube, look under pan flute. It's so relaxing. It's so now pan flute sales are going to soar throughout America.
Right.
But I love it. And you go to sleep and you go, oh, I can't wait to listen to my pan flute.
And again, is that something you should put on a timer so that it's not playing while you're still asleep? Will that affect your deep sleep if there's music going the whole night, or is that different from the light of a TV and the noise of a TV?
Well, yeah, any kind of noise, any kind of anything, any ambient noise, any light that you're not even aware of, your body really knows.
Yeah.
So yeah, you want the room as dark as possible, quiet as possible, as long as it's not too quiet, because some people can't sleep and they'll start hearing things in the middle of the night and there's nothing there.
I am guilty of that. Sometimes you need that little white noise to kind of cancel everything else out, right? And one of the things we haven't talked about, we've talked about, you know, light and color and sound and all these things, but what about the temperature of the room? Is there something you should pay attention to in terms of the temperature when you're sleeping? And, you know, are we pulling the blankets all the way up, or are we, you know, keeping them on? You know, some people stick one foot out. You know, how does temperature affect your sleep?
A little concerned about answering this, because right now, you know what's happening all throughout America. There's a husband and a wife sitting home going, all right, I told you your room's too cold. Told you the room's too hot.
That's right.
So,
we're solving marital disputes.
Yeah, let's see if I can actually be a little subtle on this. So the rule of thumb is anywhere from 68 to 72 degrees. But again, you can't go by the thermostat downstairs, because the thermostat downstairs doesn't mirror what the temperature is in the room upstairs.
Right.
But your body, Dr. Dupre was saying that your body temperature wants a drop. So if you have the room too high, now you're fighting with your body. Your body's going, oh, I'm trying to get my body temperature down. So you want it as cool as possible, but you want to make sure it's comfortable. And do you ever notice that sometimes you have to go to the bathroom when it's cold? When and then you have to get up and go to the bathroom.
Right.
What happens is when it's cold outside, your heart and your lungs are going, uh-oh, it's too cold in here. I gotta get some warmth. So, what'll happen is you start constricting the blood vessel in the arms and the legs, and all the warm blood starts going towards the center or the core of the body, which is your heart, your lungs, your kidneys, and your bladder.
Right.
And what happens is now you have to go to the bathroom.
Wow. All of this is so fascinating. The stuff that you've both been able to share with us gives us so much to think about and so much to put into practice in terms of trying to get the most and the best quality sleep that we can get. So I really appreciate you both spending the time with us today, and I hope that our guests can take all of these factors into consideration. And if all of Joel's tips don't help, they seek out a sleep medicine specialist to help them with all of those things. So thank you both so much for joining us today and for sharing the information. And thanks you to all of you for sharing your time with us today as well. Aging Insights is produced by the New Jersey Foundation for Aging and is made possible by donations to the foundation. To become a sponsor for Aging Insights programs, please go to our website, www.njfoundationforaging.org, or call us in the office at 609-421-0206. All of the previous programs may be viewed on our website. We want to remind you to find out about senior services in your area. Please contact your county office on aging. Their numbers are also listed on our website, but you can call the state hotline at 1-877-222-3737. Thank you for watching this episode of Aging Insights, and remember, aging is everyone's business.